Welcome to Board Game Binge, the place where we bring you bite-sized, bingeable board game content from across the industry. I'm your host, James Staley, and in this episode, we're chatting with Earl Silva, a graphic artist, game designer, and owner of Terrier Games. Terrier Games is an indie publisher that specializes in small footprint games, with their titles available on their website as well as thegamecrafter.com. Earl, welcome to the binge. How you doing?
Hey, how's it going?
Oh, it's going great. As soon as I saw like your portfolio of these kind of small footprint games, I thought perfect fit for the binge. This is the kind of secret sauce that people really listen in and tune in to kind of get into the weeds on game design, game development. And there's this whole genre, quite frankly, around small format games, right? So I thought that, we invite you on the binge, and we're going to get into that in today's episode. Before we get started, I always love to ask people, how did you get into the industry in the first place? Like, how long have you been gaming for?
Typically like everybody else, I was playing the older games. I did play Monopoly, played Clue. My big game growing up was backgammon, believe it or not. I don't know what it was. It must have been the fact that, it came in the suitcase case kind of thing. I loved it. Nobody wanted to play. So it was rare that I got to play, but that's what I would play. I was into games though. I was more of a console gamer, like digital games.
Yeah.
It wasn't until later that I started playing the board games. And mostly it's just a product of my environment. Like I started getting people to play, or we had the pandemic and stuff. I got people to play, so I was late to the game, but as you can tell, like I love them now, so I'm here. That's all that matters.
And so what's your day job? Like, what do you do outside of board games? Like when you're not in like full on creation mode?
So I went to school for graphic design.
Oh, cool.
I haven't really worked too much or too deeply within the industry yet. I'm still young, still trying to get my footing.
Yeah.
And the day job I did get displaced because of the pandemic and all that stuff. So that's actually where I sort of decided, hey, now's my chance to start doing the games that I wanted to do. Might as well just go with it. And so that's kind of where I'm right now is I still do freelance work and now doing the games also. So
it doesn't surprise me because the number of people I've talked to in this industry that said, I was dabbling before, but COVID either through, again, displacement of work or just being locked in my house with nowhere to go. Now you got all this extra time, right? And a lot of people have said, I'm going to pump that into creation mode, into game creation mode. So, it's cool to kind of to hear that and see some of these creations you've come out with. So what is Terrier Games? Has this been around then, I guess, for 2 years? Is that when it's been formally like a company for you, or?
Yeah, so I did start under a different name, a different logo. And I hit the ground running, but I came across another designer with not the same logo, but a similar one. So I was just kind of like, well, if I'm going to do this, I don't want to have any issues. So I'm just going to scratch it and then start over. And we have a Boston Terrier. That's been our family dog for a while. And so I was just like, you know what? I'm just going to play around with that. Came up with something real quick. My wife was like, oh, that's cute. And I was like, she said cute. I was like, let's try that. I haven't had that response with the logo yet. So I was like, let's see what cute does for me. And, and I like it because it's kind of like a homage to him. I mean, he's not going to, sadly, they don't, stick around forever. Yeah. So he's been a good boy. So that's kind of my, my thing for him. So
great dogs.
When he does go, when he goes, I mean, he's our first child basically. So
yeah, and for people who are watching live or watching the replay, you'll see in the bottom left-hand corner, right below Earl's window, you can see his logo, Terrier Games. I'm embarrassed. I'm just seeing the dog now. The first few times I saw it, I saw the castle, I saw the keyhole. Until you
So
mentioned it this second, I did not know it, but now I can't unsee it, right?
yeah, you're actually surprisingly the second person that said that to me. I had somebody who did a piece in a e-zine on me, and he was like, yeah, for the longest time I just saw this castle thing, and then my wife was like, that's a dog, and he was like, oh, well, like, I didn't notice. So I was kind of like, that was kind of funny. I was like, I see it right away, but then
It's kind of
I
like the
guess
FedEx logo, right? The arrow in the FedEx logo that people don't see until someone points it out. And then once somebody points it out, you can't unsee it, right? Like it's quite clever. That's a very clever logo. I love
it's
it.
kind of funny because the more I kind of look at it, it's sort of defined what I do as a company, because it's a bunch of game pieces to create this, like, another piece.
Yeah.
And I've come out with my games, I realize, oh yeah, I kind of do try and recycle pieces that already exist and make something new out of it. So it kind of just fits. So I was like, all right,
So
works.
what was the first game you created? Like what was kind of the lead domino that started this whole kind of journey for you?
Like as Terrier Games, or just as a designer?
Just as you as a designer.
As a designer, so I kind of started back getting out of high school. I was really getting into craft brewing. Basically, I'm
Yeah.
into anything where I can use my hands and make something out of nothing. So I got really into craft beer. My wife and I moved up to Sacramento, and there's a huge beer scene out there. And so I decided, oh, I'll do a craft beer blog. Like, why not? Everybody does it. And so I was doing it for a while, got a good couple thousand followers, and was like, okay, I need to give back to this community. So I thought, well, I'm a graphic designer. I'll make some playing cards or something, because when you go to the breweries, that's what you do. You
Yeah.
get your flight of beers. They have games there, cornhole, like card games, all this stuff. So I was like, okay, I'll make a beer themed deck of cards or something, and just have that as like a thank you. And I started, designing, making it, and going like, okay, well, I could just make a game, like, so we have something to play anyway. And it basically kind of snowballed from there. So the first game, I don't even think I gave it a name. Actually, no, I think it was kind of like a rock, paper, scissors style game called Bottle Label Beer.
Okay.
And basically, yeah, you go around like a small map, and then try and dominate the map. Is like you get four in a row. The way you change out the pieces with rock, paper, scissors. So, but from there, it just kind of snowballed, and then I started getting more into the board game hobby, and then met a lot of great people, and I was kind of like, wow, like, I kind of want to keep doing this. So I've kind
Yeah.
of put brewing in the back burner and started playing games. But
And then when did you decide to do this kind of small format or this small kind of footprint style game?
again, I'm just a product of my environment.
Hmm.
I don't have. We've been moving around a lot, so I haven't really been able to establish a good game shelf. So even the games I'm kind of picking up are on the smaller side,
Hmm.
and I was like, okay, well, if I want to make and play a bunch of games, I have to be able to store them, have them around, or even just bring them out to have people try. They just ended up being small, and so yeah, I discovered the whole the minting games,
Yep.
the micro games, the small games, and we're just like, I could do that. Like, basically I can have the same game that I've made and just make the pieces smaller. So it was just kind of a natural fit based on my lifestyle.
And how did that evolve into like the game crafter, right? Because I've noticed it on your show your website here. So on your website, you've got, I mean, there's lots of titles. You've got Roll 'em In, Roll a Lantern, Heroes
Yeah,
Greed.
the game character was really my
Yeah.
saving. So when I first looked into, like I said, coming out with the car game for my craft beer community, there was two sites that I found. There's one, I believe it was makingplayingcards.com or something.
Yep, I've used them. They're great. Yeah.
Yeah, they've had to be out of, I think, San Francisco. I should get it shipped pretty quick, but they're just cards. And then the other one I came across was the Game Crafter. And when I could not figure out the Game Crafter, I got frustrated with it, and I was like, all right, I'm just not going to use it. So I started using the makeplayingcards.com. And so a lot of my early designs were really card based.
Yeah.
I wanted to make board games, so I just thought, okay, well, I'll just make the games I'll design them in a way where all the pieces, all the components, the trackers, everything you're using cards. And I was doing that for a while, and then I would run it through people, and they're like, "Whoa, like this is nice," but I could tell they wanted something a little more tech. That's when I was like, "All right, I'm gonna try and figure out this other brand because they have the pieces, they provide it." Kind of figuring out how to use it, and then once I figured out how to use it, I was like, "Oh, this is great!" Like they actually have like their own little store I can put stuff on, and then that's really what's kept me above water, I guess, because I can't really dish out the money and everything to buy a bunch of copies. So having that print on demand service,
Yeah.
that's kind of where I modeled my company after. So it's allowed me to basically come up with stuff, pump it out, get it out real quick. So there's no Kickstarters, there's no waiting to get it. As soon as you see me post it, you like it, it's going to be available real quick.
So I'm sharing this page for people to see. I'm on the actual game, your Game Crafter page within Game Crafter. One of the cool things about Game Crafter is you can actually have your own store within their kind of commerce section, right? Which, as you said, if you want to create literally one copy, you can create one copy, right? And you put on there for people to buy, and you'll get your commissions off it and so forth based on what you've put up there. And there is a learning curve, right? So I'll acknowledge that there is a learning curve, but man,
so right now my page on there's. I'm still trying to, even my website, everything's new. So I'm still trying to pump it full of information and get pictures and stuff on there. So it's a little basic right now, but
but once you figure it out, it is such a handy tool. Like you, I started off with makeplayingcards.com and I was using that for some card-based games I was doing as prototypes. And then the Game Craft, the same thing. I'm like, you know what? I got to teach myself how to figure this out. And once you kind of and there's a lot of like online tools that actually show you how to navigate it. But once you figure it out, it's pretty handy, right? And you can iterate quick. They've got stock components you can even pull from. So if you don't have to go and figure out, okay, where can I get dice and things like that? Like there's a lot of standardized components they even have. They've got templates set up. So if you want to do like standees and so forth, it's everything you need to create a game is in there, and you can create some pretty slick looking games, especially someone like yourself, who's actually like a graphic designer, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's still some pros and cons. Like for the first game I came out with, using the Game Crafter for Terrier Games was Roll 'em In, like basically a fishing tournament kind of themed game. And originally they had these really cool boat pieces.
Yep.
They look like little boats. So that's what I worked into the design. And then when I went to throw it up there, they were like, "Oh, these are discontinued." So I was kind of like, "Okay, great." Oh, I don't want to use. I mean, you can make the custom pieces, but it would just add to the price, and I kind of want to keep mine at a low price.
Yeah. Yeah, the rationale for that is what they'll do is they'll actually go and buy like the remainder of a run, right? So say Stonemaier Games, so they go and create a game, and they'll have X, because you have your molds and so forth. They have X number of pieces made, and they always make extra just in case there's issues with shipping or people have broken pieces and so forth. But once all that's done, often they're left over with the stock of just pieces, right? That they're never going to use. And so the Game Crafter will actually go and scoop those up, and then they'll put them on their store and sell them through their store. So you got some pros and cons there, but certainly the pros out there, I think far outweigh the cons. What I love the most about them, and this isn't an average, I don't get paid by Game Crafter or anything like that. I'm just a fan, right? Because I use their service and I've been using it a lot more lately, is that they are constantly looking to get to the next step. So what else can they do to their site to improve it? What else can they do to their services to improve it? What else can they offer as a template for someone to stand as a standardized template so somebody can have that for their game? And not every site does that. So the fact that they're constantly trying to do that, I dig that. I really do. I love it.
Yeah, they definitely go one step above. I mean, they have the store, but they also promote on the website.
Yeah. And
they're not charging for it. They just, because it's traffic into the website. So it's something like that, especially for like small time designer like myself, it's free promotion. So that's also great too.
Yeah, it's super cool. So these games that you have on here, like I noticed that there is a hockey game too, which looked really, really cool. And I'm not just saying that because I'm Canadian. It did look like a really cool game. So in a case like that, like, how did you make that game in the first place? Because I don't see it on the Game Crafter. So is this something that you made yourself?
Yeah, that was another one of my earlier designs, and I decided to pull it from the Game Crafter because just after having it for a while, I wanted to make some changes to it. So that one I'm going to put back up eventually, but I did pull it down. And that's just, again, like, I'm a hockey fan too. So um, I wanted to have a game that was hockey themed. And from what I saw just out there in the world, there wasn't anything like I wanted to play. Again, like I said, my tastes have changed as I've made more games. So I kind of want to revisit that. Originally, it was sort of like I guess like a chess style game, but where the board constantly changes. And I thought that was really cool, but I kind of want to dive more into the theme and make it a little bit more thematic than just like a game with the hockey theme slapped onto it.
Yeah.
So yes, I'm going to rework that one. I took it off, but
kind of reminds me. I saw an interview recently with Ed Sheeran, and he was talking about his songwriting, and I thought, wow, that's almost similar to the board game industry, where he's like, the best way to become a good songwriter is just write a lot of songs. And he says, if he goes back to the songs he wrote when he first started, he says most of them are garbage. But, by continuing to write songs, and he was literally writing a song a day, he got better and better and better at it. Now he's one of the, biggest recording artists in the world and songwriters in the world. And I see board games very similar to that as well, that if you're constantly creating games, right, you will see that through this iterative process, you're going to see the quality improve over time. I even say to people, play as many games as you can, right? Play as many games as you can. I try to play a different game every week if possible, because, there's going to be certain things that I've never even thought of. And an idea might get sparked by, playing maybe you've never played Dominion before. Well, play Dominion. Now you know how to do, a deck builder, right? Things like that. So certain mechanics, try to introduce yourself to as many different mechanics as you possibly can. So I can kind of relate how you want to go back to it. And I'm doing that too with some of my creations, where I'm going back to the initial creation thinking,
it's that point as a designer. It's like when you actually finished with the game, and so you play it, and then you're like, someone will mention something, and you have play tested it and play tested all you want, and then you play it with that new idea, and you're like,
damn,
oh, man, like dang it. So that's also a nice thing with the Game Crafter is it's so easy to just pop it up and throw it down and put it back up. I mean, if you want to establish yourself, you can't be doing that. But versus like having to order, 1,000 some odd copies from China or something and wait for it to get shipped, you can just do everything within the website and then fix it real quick. Like I'll admit I've had some issues with some of my rule books, just spelling grammar stuff, and someone brings my attention. It's like, okay, so I'll go up there, change it real quick, and then it's fixed. It didn't really hurt me too much. But
tabletop simulators like that too, where you can iterate very, very fast, right? It's literally just uploading a new file, and then bang, everything is updated. Game Crafter is I can relate to that. That's very similar as well. Can you describe your process? So are you theme first, mechanics first? How do you approach it?
I'm all over the place. The last one I came up with, the Roller Lantern.
Yeah.
That was I was mechanic first. Something like that. Hockey game was theme first. It really just depends on what pops in my brain. Is it, if I'm at kind of a slow time and I'm like, well, okay, I should probably think about working on another game, then I'll kind of go into, okay, well, what kind of game do I want to play? What mechanics do I want in it? And then there's sometimes I'm just sitting here, I'm like, oh, like I have an idea for a game, and I'll pump it out. So I'm all over the place. It would be really hard for me to give advice because I do a little bit of everything. Everything you hear on other podcasts and everything, it's everything basically.
Yeah. Now, recently, if anybody's following your Instagram page, and I'm going to show that on screen here as well, you've started to really dive into this world of pixel art. Can you explain what pixel art is to the layperson?
Well, I mean, as I said, I'm still exploring it, and I'll just go on a tangent real quick. The reason why I've started doing more pixel stuff is that's kind of how I approach my games. Really, is I kind of go into it from an artist point of view more than like a company or a publisher's point of view, even though I am a publisher.
Yeah.
And I like to kind of give myself projects like before I was into the pixel stuff, I was actually getting into a lot of like ASCII art,
Okay.
which is using text and letters and basically like typing to create images. And so I actually made a game using that kind of art, but um, I didn't really care for it, and so I kind of moved on to something else. So my next kind of project, just to grow, advance my skills as an artist, I thought, okay, well, I really like the pixel kind of idea and the pixel thought, which is that kind of retro um, art style you see with the like video games, like Game Boys
Hmm.
and video game kind of style art. And so I started into it, and I started making these little characters, and then I started thinking like, okay, well, I can actually use this for a game, and so I made some like dungeon crawling, themed kind of stuff. And so I started doing that, and I started working on a game, and that really didn't work out. So then my mission was, okay, well, I like this kind of art, so I'm going to kind of get into it and just see what I can do with it. And then from that, a couple games have like sparked from it. So I have the Path of Rivals on there, and that one was more of a monumental task than I thought. Originally, I started making these little creatures, and I thought, okay, well, I'm a fan of Pokemon. I'm kind of into it, so I was like, maybe I can make something like that. And then the more I made it, I'm like, man, like I give them props because they, even the original was at 150 or something. Like that's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Like just for have to interlace everything together. So with a board game like that, I was like, man, like I'm gonna end up having to make like 100 or so of these little creatures, and I was like, I don't even know if my work's any good yet, like as a pixel artist or anything. So
Sure.
but yeah, that's also kind of my process too. Is I like to give myself sort of an art challenge and then kind of work that into a game or something, just because I like also making games on the side. So I mean, I'm a hobby collector, so I like to try and have everything work together.
Yeah.
That way I can do everything all at once. And so yeah, that was one of those projects where I was like, okay, well, I already made up my mind. I'm going to use pixel art for this game, and then because I'm using the Game Crafter and in Instagram and stuff like that, I can actually throw my stuff out there and show everyone my process as I'm
Hmm.
going. And so they're also kind of helping me, everyone who comments and talks to me and everything helps shape all the games, because I can tell like, okay, I need to work on this then because people don't understand what this is or what this looks like and stuff. So like I said, my process is really kind of on the fly.
Yeah. How do you
Anything
do
to,
your play testing? Is it like do you send out like print and plays, or how do you do that? Like what's your process for play testing?
So, I play it myself. I'll throw it in front of family, throw it in front of friends, friends of friends. Um, uh, Depending on where we're at, because I said we're moving around a lot.
Yeah.
If I can find a game store, I'll go at a game store and just ask people if they want to play. Um, my games are usually fairly simple.
Mm.
Um, so kind of run it through. I like to look for different how do I say it? So like I'll get like some females to play it, males, kids, like just
Yeah.
a good mix of demographics, and just see like if it's working here and there. So I don't have the resources to really play test substantially like a lot of the bigger people,
Sure. Yeah.
but I can't, so I can't be negative and say like I don't need to do that, but my games have pretty much been straightforward
Yeah.
and have worked out. So I haven't really come across a lot of problems that I'm like, okay, I need to run this more. So I'll run as much as I can, and then when I'm not really having any issues anymore, I'm like, okay, this is working, it's done, and then I
Yeah.
send it out.
And you've given
So
some of your games away for free too. Like I seen on your site that you're like these are free to download. So I guess they're print and plays, the free ones, are they? Or
no, so I actually haven't done any printed plays. Part of that early design style I had with just being able to have a card printer, like
yeah.
manufacturer, um, I've found that a really good tool for me is just using a regular standard deck of cards, and kind of learning the game crafter before I was actually using it like as my main thing. Sometimes I would play the games just using the deck of cards,
Hmm.
and I would have to kind of like tell the story like, hey, just pretend this is this, pretend this is this. And then I kind of had this idea of like, well, if my family and these people who aren't super big gamers, but they understand what I'm doing, I could actually just, have this release this game as just its bare bones a deck of cards, and people can use, basically everyone already has it, so it would be free to play. And that was, like I said, when we were doing the lockdowns of the pandemic,
Yeah.
and the shipping and everything was bad. So I was like, here, I can make my games, get them out there, make a name for myself, and no cost to anybody. And like, who wouldn't want to play a free game? So
Yeah.
provides players with some free stuff to play. And
most people have like cards too, right? And if you don't, like the local dollar store, you can get like a deck for nothing, right?
If you come across any of my pages or my sites or anything like that, you probably have a deck of cards somewhere.
Yeah.
Lying around. So I just thought it was a really, really versatile thing to be able to like, this guy's having this, having free. And I've seen some other designers do it too. Mostly like dungeon crawler style games.
Yeah.
You're throwing the cards out, and so I just thought, like, why not add to that? It's not going to cost anybody anything. And
that's one thing during the pandemic I thought was really cool is I saw a lot of game designers do that. Say, hey, I'm going to put this game over. I redesigned this game just because we're bored. We're going to throw it there for people to play. All you need is a deck of cards. And it's cool.
I understand. Like, I'm a small publisher. I don't really plan on competing with a lot of the big boys. So like I just like to do things different. And I thought this would be a very different approach. It's just like, hey, just give stuff away.
Yeah.
Why not? So
I don't even really see as and Chandler Copenhaver from Backer Kit now. I was formerly CrowdOx. He's got his saying of co-opetition, right? Where is the one industry out there where everyone is kind of trying to help each other, right? And like beer,
I was just about to say,
it's just like beer, right? Yeah. If you're gonna, people say they don't like beer. Well, they haven't tried every beer. There's so much beer out there, and one beer somebody might like one kind of beer. Another person might say that kind of beer gives me heartburn. I'll only drink lagers. So there's so many different games out there. There's something for everybody, and certainly it's a large sandbox for everybody to play in. So far, it's been pretty friendly, and most people try to help each other, which I think is really cool.
Oh yeah, like even the craft beer community. When I was kind of diving into that, you could walk up to any brewer, like go to a brewery, like a big one, and just say like, hey, how do you make this? And they'll tell you. Because there's that huge barrier of entry that you're not gonna go out and go start a brewery with their recipes or anything. Like they're very open, and so that's also why I kind of latched onto the board game community, because same thing, they're very open. Like
Oh yeah.
Like even I heard you talking about Catan on a previous podcast, so it popped in my head. But yeah, he has all his notes and everything up there on his website. Like, hey, this is this is how I came up with this idea. This is how I changed this. So I really liked that approach, and I thought, like, okay, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to be very open about everything. So a lot of posts you'll see on my Instagram is just me throwing out like unfinished work and just like, hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? And it's kind of helped me gain a little confidence. I'm not like I don't want to throw this game out in front of somebody yet because I'm not sure. I just throw it out now. So, and that's also a nice thing too, is when I was getting into game design, I was trying to research and see like, well, how where do you start? Like, what do you do? And I wasn't really finding anything. There was a lot of stuff where people had already made something and like, well, I did this, but I was like, I want to see the whole thing from the very start to the very beginning, like what happens in between. And now I'm finding out like there's really nothing. Like you wake up one day, you got the idea popped in your head, and then you just go.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of like, okay, I can see why it's not really out there, but I'm trying to be as out there as I can. So that way, like if anyone is interested in my stuff, like you'll see it from the very beginning. Like, oh, that's cool. Like I remember back when that was like, it had a different theme and it was about this or something. So
there are some books on game design too. And so like, I know Joe Slack, we've had him on the podcast before, and he actually teaches a course on game design. So for people that don't have kind of the ideas pouring out and kind of that MacGyver kind of mentality of I'm just going to figure out how to make it with the materials I have in front of me, but have some ideas and want to get into the design. Well, there are some structured programs out there that people can participate in that can help them kind of get there. And Stonemeyer Games, we plug them all the time on the podcast because Jamie Stagmeyer has given a lot back to this community, and his website has like a paint by numbers blog on how to do everything from A to Z, which is really cool. Where does Terrier Games go from here? Like what's your next kind of level that you're looking to get to? Is it eventually Kickstarter, or kind of where do you go from here?
So I mean, I've always like I frequent Kickstarter. Most of the
Mm.
games I have that I do own are Kickstarter projects that I've backed, but I don't plan on being on Kickstarter. Um, it comes back to there was I saw an interview with Tom Vassell and
Yeah.
some other designers, and it was early on when I was starting this, and he was just like, man, like if you want to get into the game design, you can't do it for the money. You got to really like it because there's all these costs and stuff. And so I sort of thought like there's got to be another way to do it, like another way around. And that's, thank God the Game Crafter came around.
Yeah.
So I was able to actually do that because of the print on demand service. But I just like that idea of instead of like asking people for money, ask people to play. So
Yeah.
I'll do a Kickstarter, but we'll see how that goes. Like I'm still trying to run a business. And so eventually I'll have to make some sort of
Get to the
profit
next
somewhere.
step. Well,
Yeah, but right now it's just going to be I just pump them out as they come in my head. So,
well, if people want to follow you, how best do they do that? How best do they follow Terrier Games?
probably Instagram. I don't have a mailing list or anything like that. I'm just really using social media because it's free, it's available, everyone has it.
Yep.
I am on Twitter too, but I mostly just repost, or I'm on Twitter too, but I mostly repost from Instagram. So Instagram's probably the best
Awesome. And I noticed if you go to terriergames.com, all your links are on there as well, to the Game Crafter, to your Instagram pages and so forth, so people can find you there. It's been awesome having you on this podcast. It's been quite insightful, getting into kind of the mind of a developer. So I want to thank you for that and wish you all the best in this coming year.
Oh, you too. Thanks. Thanks for having me on.
Take care. Cheers.
All right.
This has been an episode of the Board Game Binge podcast, hosted by James Staley, produced by James Staley and Mike Bruner, with original music by Nick Smith. If you would like to watch these interviews live, simply join the Facebook group Board Game Binge, and you'll get access to live interviews, giveaways, and interesting board game content from across the industry. I can't wait for you to join us. See you next time.